Okay, so back again. I thought actually I would attempt to build this. I'll probably have to pause the video from time to time, and then we'll try and get this into one complete video. So a lot of this we have skipped because this base is already pre-built. The stage that we come into the manual is where we are popping the feet on with M5 bolts. Now everything is nicely bagged and labelled, so the feet come, and they're really nice, quite hard but a little bit of softness to them, silicone feet, and the bolts are already in the bag. It tells you what size Allen key to use, so we can spin this over and immediately we see the captive bolts have been put in place as it's pre-assembled, and literally we are just going to put these feet in, and I'm going to move them right to the end. I suspect that will be the best place for them. Yeah, that locks up very firmly. I've got to test their claim that these are stainless steel, but we can do that later. I don't think I've got a trusty, oh yes I have, I've got a trusty magnet here. Well, I think they probably are stainless steel, but they're not the highest quality stainless steel. Lower quality stainless can be attracted to magnets where what I call proper stainless steel isn't, but as you can see these do stick very lightly to that magnet, and that is a strong magnet. So yeah, stainless steel, but probably not the highest quality. It might be off camera there. Oh wait, yeah, just. Just noticed that the battery was running out because it's plugged into the AC, but I hadn't actually turned it on, so luckily we spotted that in time. Looks like they have given us a spare screw. I'm just going to quickly check, just make sure all these bolts are done up. Yeah, looks pretty square as well. Yeah, all seems good. So that's the feet done, and let's spin that back over. And that is quite a nice grip on there. Okay, so feet done. They are now showing these Bakelite panels going on to the sides. Bolts are M5 and there's 6 each side. Now they have kindly labelled all of the bolts in these bags, so we know exactly which ones to use, and we should be able to bolt this straight on. 6 aside. Getting them in the right place is probably the hardest bit of this job. Yeah, that's a good point. How are we going to do that? Now I notice some companies offered a piece of plastic that would just sit in here, and you just bump the nuts up against that bit of plastic, and then another bit of plastic in here just so you can get this spacing right, but that is not the case here, unfortunately. That would make things a whole lot easier, but let's have a go. is not going to be particularly easy, is it? Now, does that go right to the back? It doesn't, does it? Looks like there's quite a gap. Well, that will have to work out. So what I'm going to do is we're just going to hold this above, and I'm just going to put the nuts pretty close to where these holes line up, and if we're lucky we can then lower at least one side down. I don't know whether we'll be able to do two sides. Now it's all over the place, so I might turn this up on its end. Now let me just adjust this. Now I can see most of the screws here are in the position I put them in. I'm just going to straighten them up with this Allen key, and then we'll attempt, I don't know whether you can see that again, sorry guys. Really not clear to me how much of a gap you have here between the back of the machine and this gantry. Okay, so last screw, I'm just going to do it finger tight, and then we are going to go over. We're going to carefully tilt this up on its side. Now I think what we're going to do here is just use a cable guide, sorry, a cable tie, and we'll just feed those screws along so I can see a pair lining up at this far end, and then we'll chuck two screws in the far end like so, and then we'll just allow the others to get back out of there again, and we'll put another two screws up and line it up with the middle holes, and same with this side. That's it, and another two screws and bolts go in there. Now squaring this up is obviously crucial, and then we'll grab another two bolts and we'll use those last two captive nuts with the cable tie, feeding it to there, which is now aligned. So actually, yeah, pretty straightforward. Now the question is, how do we know exactly where to position this gantry? Let's have a look at the manual. Now you can see what they're showing there, but there's no obvious measurements. Now they're showing the back of the gantry through the hole, and if I bring, but then it's not all the way forward, is it? So that's not what they're showing at all, so I really have no clue. I suppose the important bit is where this spindle is when this is at the front. If it's pretty close to the back, so yeah, if we just bring this to the centre, let's pop that down again so you can see a little better. So I'm just going to bring the gantry to the X centre, and if we were bringing that down now, you're going to be pretty close to the back. And now if we bring this all the way to the back, then just hear the limit switch there, so that's pretty close to the back. And if we spin this all the way, let's see when that limit switch is triggered. It might well be in the ideal place already. And there's the limit switch at the back being triggered. So I suspect that is pretty close to where they would like it to be. I think what we'll do is we will get a steel rule and we'll just measure from here down to the bracket, perhaps at the top, or maybe the middle is the easiest, and we'll just make sure that both sides are in exactly the same place. And of course my metal rule is missing, so let's see if we can perhaps use the digital calipers instead. Let me just zero that, and if we go from there to there, we've got 28.85. I'm just going to nip that up so it can't move. And then we'll spin it round and see if we can get the exact same measurement. .28. Yeah, that's about bang on. So I'm just going to nip this side up as well. So there we go. That is about as close as I think we can get it. Now we'll just nip up all of these bolts. Bakelite. I didn't ever think I'd hear that term used on a piece of modern equipment again. So that's that done. Okay, so if we go back to the manual now, and you're probably best advised to check these measurements a couple of times after tightening, just in case it's a fraction out. Okay, so we think we've got the gantry in the right place. All of the other assembly for the X and Z axis have already been completed, which is nice. So we are completed to page 7. The spindle, again, that has been fitted at the factory and all looks fine. There are the motor you probably can't see, but there is a outer metal band around it, and what they have done there, that outer metal is clamped in and it is just proud, or I would say flush actually, let me just see. It's just a tiny bit proud of this plastic, so that's a good idea where to mount this, or if you have to take it apart at some point. So yeah, all good. Now then, we are at page 7 and that is done. We are now on to the control board. We won't be installing the laser, but that does show you how to do that. Control board description comes in a minute, but let's turn this machine around and get the control board mounted. So we have, I don't know whether you can see on the back here, we have 2 captive nuts here and we have 4 at the top. So I would assume then, why have we got 2 more at the top, I wonder. Okay, let's get this control board mounted. Now, which one are they saying it is? It's this, isn't it? Again, not a clear picture, unfortunately. So that's the control board, and I'm assuming, well, I'm going to go with it that the text is up and readable, you know, the correct way around. So I'm sure it would have to fit there, right in the middle. Hopefully you can see that. I keep triggering this emergency stop switch. I just don't know why we've got another 2 there, but not to worry, I'm sure they're there for a reason. If they aren't, they're going to rattle around and be a right pain in the backside. Now, the screws that fit this are M4, and that is the 4 we've got down here, which you can't see. Let's just put that there. So let's get the correct Allen key, and we'll just offer this up to the first nut. Gently secure that there. Slide across another one at the top. Come on, in there. Why won't that go? Oh, please don't tell me we've got a dodgy captive nut. That'll be a pain in the ass. Doesn't look right, I have to say, actually. And I think they are different sizes, so that's what's going on there. There's 2 up here for something else, whatever that might be, but these are different sizes, so that's why it wasn't going in. So I need to use those 2. It's a relief. I didn't want anything dodgy going on that involved taking the sides off or anything like that. Okay, that's more like it. Just line that one up. There we go, much better. Just going to leave those loose for the moment. We'll get the bottom ones in. just get behind that and bring that back, and we should, oh no, the other one's this end, so that's fine. Interesting that this is now under tension very slightly. It's like these two don't quite line up. Just lining that captive nut up, and that's done. Now I'm assuming we would want that about in the middle, so we're just going to look up from the motor, which is obviously centrally fitted, and we're just going to have to move that very slightly. Doubt it's critical, but it might matter as far as the wiring goes. Oh, come on. Yeah. There is a midline moulding mark there, and I'm just going to get that lined straight up with the centre of the motor, just in case it matters as far as the length of the various cables goes. I'd be more than surprised, but you never know. Vibration, I suspect, might loosen these bolts. You could, I suppose, go around and apply some thread lock to each one after you've confirmed that all of this is working correctly. Right, so that's the control board. Again, laser install is not relevant at this stage. Absolutely no idea how that mounts actually. Now, we'll be looking at that another time. Then we've got the control board layout, and that's it. Okay, now we have been left alone to do all the wiring by the looks of it. So let's just go back to these other guides. So we've got limit switch, Z probe. They're kind of showing where they are. Offline controller. Now, does that sit anywhere, or does that just... I don't know what I did with it now. Ah, there it is. Now there are no bolts or anything on that. So where the hell is that supposed to be mounted? This is about the wiring. That is about the chuck. And this is about the offline controller. Cannot connect with offline control and connect computer with USB at the same time. Can only use one of them. Yeah, fair enough. So it doesn't look like it mounts anywhere. So there's a USB connection and there is a display type connection here. So yeah, I'm not really sure where that's supposed to go. Now, as far as plugging all these things in and routing them, it might be worth having a look at their online YouTube guide rather than have to do all this again. So yeah, I think what we'll do is just pause the video here. I'll go and have a quick look online, and then we will be back and see if we can get this done without any further delay. Right, so I've had a quick look at their website, and basically it's an animated video of just assembling the parts. There's no clue as to how to wire it correctly, so I think the thing to do here is to wire it with as much clearance between moving parts as you can get, and then you can just cut this tube to various lengths that will all eventually lead back to the control board, kind of like they've done here already. There's a couple of bits that have been fed through. It's pre-cut, so it's quite straightforward, and there's obviously a whole load of it here. So once you have got this wired up and tested, and it's all working fine, that's when I would be just neatening these cables up. Right, so the first thing I'm going to do is the emergency stop button, and it wasn't the easiest to get to, so I've literally just unscrewed it. There is a little collar here, and that just screws up. You'll notice that there are 3 terminals here. They are actually marked, and the red wire will go to the normally closed contact, and again it's shown here, and the normally open one in the middle will be the black wire. Just push that fully home, yeah, and then we can just feed that through. Oops, which one is it? That one or the one below? No, it's that one. No, it's not. Yes, it is. What is it? Let me try the one below. No, clearly not that one. Oh dear. Right, so yeah, just feed the wire through the hole. And should look to see which way that goes back on. There's the nut. Yeah, okay, it must go this way, but it looked like it wanted to go the other way. That's interesting. One of the plastic pieces, I wonder if that's heat shrink. It's just come off. It could be heat shrink. Look, it's just popped off. So what I'm going to do is just fire up the hot air gun. Oh, hot air gun. I can't do it on camera, unfortunately. Well, maybe just. Yeah, I'm not convinced that is heat shrink tubing. No, it's not. So they've just used the wrong size slightly there. Something to bear in mind. Okay, now on the, should we feed that through the back with this one? Maybe, yeah, that's a tricky one. Quite possibly not. Let's run this right the way over and see what that contacts. We've got a limit switch down there, which is going to be awfully close to touching that. wire is being touched before that limit switch is activated, so whilst it looks pretty hideous, I might run that cable around there. I'm just going to bend the cable out. So those contacts on the emergency stop switch I've just bent, so they're facing out rather than into the machine. And now when we operate that, the wires are not getting caught on it, so yeah, I expect we'll cable tie that further round. So that's that. The same probably goes for this one. Now we've got a few connections to make, and I think we will just start with what we've already done. So we have the obvious connection of the yellow wire, and that is going to the yellow socket. Actually, I'm going to turn the camera up a little bit more. Oops, there we go. Hopefully you can see this. That is a simple connection to the yellow socket. It's keyed obviously, so that will just push in there. Clicks and that's in. Right, so this one is the X limit switch. Now when you look at these pins here, hopefully you can, let me see if I can just zoom in quickly. Yeah, I don't know whether that's going to focus, but there's a row of pins, and if you look at the diagrams, the connections are up and down, not left and right. Each limit switch has two sets of pins, so I suspect rather than have them wired as they are now, probably in the past they had wiring going to each limit switch and just running back to the board. So Y limit is the, you can see it, okay, it is the ones at the end, so we will plug that in there, and then we have the X limit, which is the other side, so there'll be basically a pair of pins left open or nothing connected, and then the next set. Then we have the Z limit, which is the pair on the left. They're all labelled, but there is a gap, so we've got the Z, then there's a gap, two pins empty, then the Y limit, and then two pins empty, and then the X, and then two pins empty. Before that we've got 5 volt and A5, I think that says. Yep, I'm not sure that is used. So you can see that it's better to get all this sorted first of all. You can cable tie, and then you can wrap the split protection around it, cutting various lengths as you need them. Right, so it looks like we've got various motor connections. I don't know whether they're all the same length at this point. Certainly those two are. So to me it looks like we have 3 stepper motor cables, and they are all the same length. Now if we just look at the wiring, they are crossed at one end and straight at the other. So that's interesting. Now does it make any difference? No, it shouldn't do, should it? Let's have a little look. So looking at the diagram, the straight through connections would appear, if you can see that, it would appear they go straight into the board, and they look obviously like that. See the straight connections. If I go to the other end, actually the plug's totally different, so I'm talking rubbish. It makes no difference because you can only put them in one way round. I should have noticed that in the first place, but didn't. So the first one here, turn it around slightly, but we're on the top now. First one is the X stepper motor, the next one is the Y stepper motor, and the last one is the Z stepper motor. So obviously the Z can go here. Again, key, it will only go one way round. The X is across here. Again, keyed. Not that way. Actually, no, it is that way. Why does that look like it's damaged? Yeah, just the way it looked. Yeah, and then we have one left, which is the Y, which is this one here. Okay, so as you can see, when you are done and everything is tested, you can then make use of the cable management material. Okay. So let's just get that out of the way into the box on the floor. We've got one more, which will be the drive to the motors, and again you have a substantial plug socket arrangement there. And I suspect that red one there is going to be for the laser. Indeed it is. Now let's spin this round. Just looking for any terminal identification marks. The same size, I think. So, which way round do they want those put on there? That's annoying. Well, let's have a think. Does it actually matter? It's a rotary tool. Does it matter if it's spinning one way or the other? Or does this motor not actually work like that? I guess it does matter because you've got a collet that does up one way, so you would want it spinning, so when it jerks to start it would automatically be tightening that up. So yes, you would think it does matter which way it spins, but I cannot see a marking anywhere on that motor. Very annoying. Okay, so that might be a trial and error job. Definitely are the same size. I really don't like the fact that these silicone boots just keep falling off. We just have used the wrong size there. Right, so let's have a look. I think what we'll do in this case, we won't use the computer now, but we will use the controller which plugs in underneath. Let's see which way we'll feed it around that way. There we go, that's plugged in. Not really long enough to bring to the very front of the machine. Okay, so let's grab the power brick. I am quickly going to check the value of the fuse. 13 amp. What power rating is this? Might have to change that. What was the input? Input's 1.2 amp max. So yeah, certainly doesn't need a, certainly shouldn't have a 13 amp fuse in there. So we'll be changing that in a minute. I'm going to plug the cable into the brick, and I'm just going to quickly pat test this just over here off camera and just check it's okay. Yeah, it's a pass. Just going to plug it into the mains. And there is a light on, so let's plug it in so it will reach. Actually, I'm going to have to plug it in where I had it here, I think. So I've just plugged that into supply near the bench. You can see we've got a nice red light on there. I'm going to make sure the switch on the board is off. And we're going to plug this in wherever it goes, which is on the side there. Now if I turn this around, you'll be able to see that we've got some red lights on there, despite the fact I thought the switch was off. And we now have this lit up as well, and it's basically got menu, and then you can go down to control and file, iPhone not connected, ready to print. Control, okay. Looks like you can now control the... No, I didn't move that, did I? Did that home itself? See if we can move it across. Apparently not. Well, none of that's working. What did we miss? Oh, hang on. Emergency stop had been activated, so that's an interesting one to look out for. Let's try again. Why did that even come on if the emergency stop is on? Well, I certainly had that switch in the on position, so I'm going to turn it off and reboot. Okay. Got all the wires connected, nothing spare. We've got this control again. Okay, so we've got that switch didn't work very well, did it? think you wonder if you've got to enable the Z, if the limit switches. How to enable and release limit switch. No, this. I think you might have to do this within the software. Yeah, they're showing screens that we obviously don't have on this, but I would have thought I could still move. Aha! Yeah, okay. So we've got full movement, hopefully. See if that limit switch works. I don't think they're activated at the moment. No, so limit switches aren't activated at the moment for whatever reason. We can change the amount to move from 0.1 to 1 to 5 to 10. So let's do it 10 and we'll go back. Oh, no, wrong way. So 10 at a time. 10 mil that is. And then on the X. So we're going to have to plug this into the PC and activate these limit switches. Now you would think that they would have activated that by default. Now spindle, let's have a look. Oh, there we go. Now that to me is spinning the wrong way. If the top bit turns left, it's going to undo. Imagine that jerks and the weight of this collet is going to lag very slightly and that will undo. So my opinion is that this is wired incorrectly. Bugger. Super cool. It's on there good and tight. It doesn't seem to have a little spring catch, and I guess there must be one. Okay, let's just take a screwdriver and pop that out. There we go. So, a negative to the left. God, what a rubbish. No, that's just falling off of there. Look how loose that is. I'm going to have to tighten that up with the pliers. You're going to really have to watch the this sort of thing. Just going to gently pinch those together. It's the sort of thing that can cause all sorts of problems. There we go. I still don't think it's tight enough, but we'll nip it up when we've tested things. Okay, same with this one. Yeah, it's okay. Right, so if we now press that centre, if I can bring this any closer, if we can zoom in and show you this. Let's have a look. Okay, so I think you can probably see that. So we've got Z axis up and down here, and that's definitely working, although the limit switches are not working. And then hopefully you can see we've got X plus and minus, Y plus and minus, and then the spindle motor and now that's going the correct way, so that collet will be locking itself up. Sorry if that's not the best, but it's quite hard to film this like this. Okay, so we seem to be in business as far as the wiring goes. A little bit of fan noise, as you would expect. So really now I think we're just going to have to check for tightness of all the limit switches, all the assembly nuts and bolts, and it's a shame that this wire could not be longer, and then this could have been fixed to the front of the machine somehow. I suppose most people will be using this through their PC. Now there is a card on here, so there's an exit setup button here which you can press, and we'll go actually, I don't know how we get out of that. Press and hold. Yes, press and hold. Now we can go to File and OK. Now it says iPhone.nc. That's the only choice, and then ready to print. So there's only, it appears to only to be one file on there. So now it thinks it's printing. And I've pressed the exit button so we can get out of that. So yeah, so that all definitely works. So I think at this stage I'm going to call it a day on this video. Hopefully that was useful. I don't think there are any massive surprises. This very basic controller works just fine, although it would have been nice to have a place for it. This is a pretty standard display cable and socket, so you probably can either make your own up or extend or buy a longer version. In case anyone was wondering about these brackets with bolts and wing nuts, they are clamps that will go in here, whichever way around, but yeah, they are to clamp things down. We'll have to look into exactly how that works. I'm sure there's some other bits missing for that, but yeah. We've also got a small vise that would also sit on here if we can raise up the tool high enough. Anyway, so there we are. It all seems to work just fine. One thing I do want to just check is go back to control. Just going to fire up the. Let's see if we hit the emergency stop button, what happens. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Quick turn and twist, and that's back up and running. So yeah, all good. Let's get these limit switches activated. That's probably going to be done through the software, and we'll do another video on the software and probably this Z probe. What a shame you can't set them up through this panel. Yeah, you seem to be able to unlock and lock various things through the software that this comes with. So yeah. Okay, look, I hope that was helpful. There'll be more videos on this in the coming days. Okay, so back again, and rather than film me faffing around with the cable management, we have just got on and completed that. There is enough of this coiled protective stuff to cover all of the wires. It's pretty straightforward, as you can see here. There were in fact no diagrams in any of the instruction leaflets or book about wiring. The laser mounts on here. That's what those other two screws were for, but the laser control panel. It's got a separate input. Obviously this could be used on its own, and that on-off button is if you're running it off a separate power supply, but in this case obviously it gets its power supply directly from the machine here. Now you're going to have to unplug the laser power connection if you're using the actual spindle. You can't leave it all connected together, so yeah, we've left the controller loose so that can come around the side. The laser is just going to stay there. We will swap it out as and when required, but it won't get plugged in here, so you would need to plug the laser in and unplug the spindle. The only other thing we had to do was just connect up the Z-axis alignment probe, and again I have just partially included that in the protection. One thing to watch out for is just to make sure these wires here have enough room to move as the y-axis, x-axis moves this from one end to the other. I've already checked that, but yeah, just make sure. The other thing I noticed was these sockets on the top were quite easy to loosen, and the limit switches at the bottom here were even more easy to pull off. I don't know whether you can see this. If I zoom in, you might be able to see it already, but I can see it. Yeah, there we go. So just along the top here I have applied a little white silicon sealant, and that's gone off overnight, and then I've turned the machine upside down, and I've just done the same to the limit switch wires and also the probe, the test probe here, if I can get it on camera. There we go. So those wires have also had a little bit of silicon popped on there. You could use hot melt if you whatever you've got handy, but yeah, I do not want these pulling off. So that's all gone fairly well. If we just spin this back round, I'll just zoom back out. So the laser will just sit down at the back. Obviously we'll be using the Z probe at some point, so that will stay to the side. The external controller can sit near the front. These, as I quite possibly showed earlier on in the video, they just go through these channels, and then you can clamp things down by adjusting these. I'm not really keen on these, but I've got a mini vise coming, one of those flat small jeweller's ones, so I might be able to use that on here. The other thing we'll probably need to do is cover this with some of the board that we've got, not this piece but one of the other stuff that I showed on one of the other videos. What we can do then is just mill out a little section depending on what we think we might be cutting the most. Yeah, it might just be worth making this board a little bit wider, as this particular board is, and yeah, just slotting it at each end, but leaving enough at the ends to hold the board and not go all the way through, not put a full channel in it, otherwise we'll have, you know, lots of bits of board. So yeah, that's about it, I think, for this video. I suspect I will then move on to, actually let's grab the camera and see if we can just do a little close up of this external controller. So we're just going to power up around the back here, if I can remember which side it was. So that is booting up. That is the fan running that you can hear. I have to unplug this camera, that cable is not quite long enough. Hopefully we've got enough battery just to film this. Okay, so if we just pop this on here, see if we can not get any reflections. So you'll see you're basically given this menu, and if you press down, you go to File, back up to Control. It literally does mean Control in this case. So we press the OK button. You can probably hear that fan increasing in speed as the board warms up. So on the left you've got the Z up and down, that's these buttons here. And if we just put that up here and zoom back out, and that's those. You can see the amount that it's going to be moved by bottom right, so 10mm, and you can control that with the step button here. If I press step, 0.1, 5 and 10. Let's just leave it on 1 for the moment. So if we press X, and same with Z, they're all going to move 1 now. Don't forget the limit switches are still disengaged. We're going to have to go into the software. If you look at the middle, that will focus. It says SP for spindle, and you can turn the spindle on with the center button. But you've got the spindle speed here at 10%, and you need to press the OK and Z up and down buttons to change that. You've got 100%, 50, 10 and 1% easily selectable there. No doubt the software will give you more options, and that stops it. To exit out of this menu system, you just press and hold exit, and that will take you back up to the main menu with Control and File. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good. I just need to crimp these connections to the motor up a little tighter than they are. I suppose you could solder them in place, but I think that'll probably be a little bit over the top. I'm just going to crimp those and put them back on again, or just tighten them up in place. Now I've got to go back to what I said earlier, or possibly even in an earlier video. There are absolutely no warnings about use of goggles, safety, lasers, permanent eye damage, blindness. Absolutely no mention of it at all. The only thing you've got is a label on the laser saying danger. But that is absolutely shocking, and that is the problem with all of these consumer units, the total lack of safety. I've double checked, I've gone through this manual again. There are no laser, the international laser symbol, absolutely nothing on any of these pages. So yeah, we'll go over to the computer now and have a look at the software installation.